AirPod system may be in place, okay? That Dak is their quarterback of the future, but the pandemic is holding the deal up, okay? And that he and the team, but he will handle the anthem with grace. Bomani Jones around the horn to you. How do you hear Jerry Jones?
Well, I think he's operating on the same premise as the rest of the NFL when it comes to talking about what the season's going to be. Act like everything is as normal as possible until they absolutely have to go into another direction. I don't really think there's a real cost to him from that. He says they're going to play in front of fans. That don't mean they're going to play in front of fans, but it seems like a cool thing for him to say right now. So, okay, I get where Jerry's coming from on that. Now, with the anthem, this gets to be interesting because never forget, Jerry Jones came out there with his team in Arizona and knelt before the national anthem in 2017, and they got booed, and I'm convinced that Jerry swore for God right before there he wasn't never ever going to get booed again. He believed that this was not a winner with the people, but he doesn't have the same flex over the roster that he had then. Like, I think then he could go out there on the threatening, everybody on our team is going to have the toe on the line. I don't think that's a play that works as easily for him this go round. So I think he's going to have to listen to his players, and there's going to have to be some measure of compromise because this is not the time that he wants to be the one guy going the hardest on this one. This is not a time you want to be compared to Leonardo DiCaprio in that one movie. You know what I mean?
Which is Jerry-like if this is not the time he's going to be. El Duncan, I'll bring you in here. Jerry said a lot. You could go after Dak here and how he's been talking about that long-term contract. Or the fans, or the anthem, please.
Yeah, well, okay, let me address the anthem first. I mean, the man said, to my count, 17 times he said the word grace in less than 6 minutes. I mean, as soon as I heard it, the first thing I did was roll my eyes. The second thing I did was Google Brett Butler, star of Grace Under Fire, the hit 90s sitcom, because I was like, oh, yeah, that's a person. Listen, Jerry Jones is doing, I think, what a lot of people are doing. In fact, ESPN did a sort of fan survey, if you will, to sort of test the temperature of what fans felt about social injustice. And not shockingly, 71% of them felt like athletes do have a responsibility to speak about social injustices. Meanwhile, only 54% of them felt like demonstrating during the anthem was the right thing to do. It's incredibly polarizing. It was for sure a word salad. I think Jerry Jones, to Bomani's point, doesn't want to be booed. At the same time, you can't on one hand say you're listening to your players and then also say you're lending an ear to Donald Trump, who has been incredibly clear about where he stands with kneeling. In terms of Dak Prescott and saying he couldn't get his deal done with him because of the pandemic, I find that to be total hogwash. He's not a free agent. You know what you've got there under center. If the Chargers, who are notoriously stingy about paying people, could give Joey Bosa that kind of money, despite there being a pandemic and questions about what the league will look like under this new salary cap, I think that the Cowboys could have got it done.
And now Sarah Spain on Jerry Jones' first public comments in 109 days.
For the contract, it's clear there's been more standing in the way of them making a deal with Dak than the pandemic because this has gone on longer, much longer than the pandemic, which is crazy to say because this feels like it's been a decade in the last 4 months. But I don't doubt that it has made things more difficult because while we can look at Bosa's deal or Mahomes' deal and point to those as examples of how you can get it done during this, it doesn't always mean you should, right? So there is something to be said for being aware that what's going on with the future economics of the league are still a little bit in question and you don't want to make any big decisions. I do think it's a bit of a cop-out based on the fact that they couldn't make one before the pandemic either. As for the anthem stuff, to El's point, the word grace is fascinating. It can mean so many things and also mean absolutely nothing. And here I think it means nothing because he didn't want to say anything. He said, I'm open-eared to these people and I'm open-eared to these people. I want to show everybody grace and everyone on their opinions. He's eventually going to have to make a firm decision on this when his players kneel, which they will if there is football this year. And I, to Bomani's point, do not believe that he's going to be the one owner who says, you're sitting, you're not allowed to play, whatever, if you kneel, because the players at this point have way more leverage than they did the last time. But I think he's going to keep it pretty vague until the very last possible second.
Amazing grace. El, I'm feeling you with Grace Under Fire. I thought Sarah was going to give us Grace from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Grace!
Will and Grace.
Okay.
There's so many.
Can we talk about fans in the seats? Do we believe that is viable, El Duncan, here? With the air free flow pod system maybe being in play? I'm not sure.
I have to imagine that, like, the Dallas PR team, whenever Jerry Jones starts talking, it's just like, they're gracing and bracing for what they're certainly going to hear. I mean, yes, in a best case scenario, there would be fans in the stands. Again, like this is sort of the idea that all the NFL teams are taking, like this ability that they're just going to push through the coronavirus pandemic. But I do love, my favorite part of what Jerry Jones said, I think, despite all of the other word salad that he said, was that, and the fans are going to be there of their own volition. As opposed to what, Jerry? When you used to force them by threat to be in the stadium? Like, I'm so confused as to what any of that meant.
All right. Let's focus more on fans at games, because what we got in Frisco, Texas last night. MLS, and this is FC Dallas and Nashville SC, their first game, because they couldn't even play when they were playing the tournament because they tested so many positives. The game was 1-0 Nashville. There were 2,912 fans in attendance. Before the game, during the anthem, teams kneeled and fans booed and threw objects.
You got fans booing you for people taking a stand for what they believe in when millions of other people support this cause. And we've discussed with every other team and the league what we're going to do. And we got fans booing us in our own stadium. How disgraceful is that? We asked for no anthem because we don't feel it was right for the anthem to be played at this moment. They ignored our wishes.
That's Reggie Cannon of FC Dallas, and that was responding to Angela Madison Franco of the Dallas News. Elle, can I ask you how you hear all that?
Yeah, I hear an exasperated athlete that probably felt like many of us do in this situation, that we thought we cleared this up months ago about what the purpose of demonstrating during the anthem actually was. And the first opportunity that fans had in the stands to prove that they finally get it, that this reckoning we've been talking about, this awakening we've been talking about for months, like this was their chance to prove they understand. And what happened the first time we had a live event with fans in the stands? They booed. What those Dallas fans should have been booing is about the fact of what they should have been finding disrespectful is that on a day where Dallas County had 30 deaths, the third highest death toll since the pandemic started in that county, they were asked to sign waivers saying that they would not hold the team responsible should they got coronavirus, and then sat there and watched their team lose to a winless expansion team. That's disrespectful.
You just brought up the statistics on how polarizing this is during the anthem, right? So it was 54-46, I think, is what you just gave us before. And you heard from Cannon there that he approached the league about not having the anthem before the game when teams were out there. How do you think the league's considering it right now, Elle?
I mean, that's been floated before. That was floated years ago with Colin Kaepernick. Like, let's just not play it at all. And of course, there was the very vocal crowd that said no. Like, it's become a part of what we expect when we have these live events. And like, that's just as disrespectful, and completely ignoring the situation to me is a cop-out. It makes it easy for people to have absolutely no stance or side on this by saying, let's not just play it at all. Look what happened when the WNBA players actually left the court before the anthem was even played, essentially sort of removing themselves from the situation. That same survey that I just brought up basically was widely panned by all sports fans as incredibly disrespectful. In fact, the most disrespectful thing that they'd seen in years because of it.
Sarah Spain, your view of it all?
Well, yeah, and what's unfortunate about that WNBA event was that it was then misconstrued, and then it was used as an example of disrespect, that they walked out during the anthem and said it before. No matter what you do around this, whoever is on one side is going to view it a certain way and spin it in a way that it's disrespectful, or it's intentional, or it's bad for the military, or the respect for the flag. And if you're on the other side, you're going to say, listen to all the ways we're telling you why we're doing this and how we're doing it and in what vein we're doing this. And they're not going to listen either side. And so as much as I get Elle's point that it's kind of a cop-out to just have no anthem at all, we shouldn't have an anthem at sporting events. We don't have them before plays and concerts and other massive public gatherings. It's something that we sort of had grandfathered into a point where we now think it's something we need to do. We need to ask more questions about why we do things the way we do them and whether we need to continue doing them that way. And I think when it comes to stuff that's going to be completely divisive and never accomplish what it's meant to, maybe it's time to rethink it.
Well, Monty Jones, where are you with what Sarah just said?
I mean, I think that there's a real question about why it is that we do this in the first place. And I've raised this question for the NBA about, especially there where there are no people there at the games, whether there's a purpose to playing the anthem. How much pageantry do we necessarily need? But this is the thing I think we need to keep in mind here. No matter how polarizing we say that this issue is, it's 54% or 46%, neither of those are the number of people who think it's appropriate to boo and throw things at people under those circumstances. The people that are booing and throwing things Those people are racist, and there ain't nothing you're going to be able to do to sway those people, and there's nothing you should do to try to sway those people. And I applaud the players to be willing to, in the face of that, continue to do what they're doing. But I guarantee you this, if they keep on booing this at the games, don't you worry, they will stop playing the national anthem at that point, right? Because that becomes something where nobody wins, and the league is going to have to go about this a little bit differently. But we have to stop entertaining and pretending as though people who behave like that are worthy of our respect. We have to stop pretending as though we have to try to reason with those people. If they've decided that they're too racist to even listen to give consideration to what these ideas are, we need to keep on doing what we're going to do in spite of whatever it is that they have. So if they want to be out there and throw things at people, we need to take this platform not to be like, oh man, what is it? We need to call those people racist as it seems very clear that they are. And if they're not racist, please let me know why you're so mad about this situation that you think it's appropriate to throw something at people, because that looks exactly what I would think a cartoonish racist would do in a time like that.
Thank you, Bomani Jones. We'll have that be the last word. When we come back in 2 minutes, who said whoever wins the national championship, that's the national champion for college football this season? Who said that? Could it be Dabo Swinney? 2 minutes. Buy or sell. Quote, it doesn't change anything for us. Whoever wins it. That's the champ. End quote. Who said it? Dabo Swinney said it. Bomani Jones, buy or sell that being convenient? Buy or sell that being legitimate?
Oh, buy it being convenient, sell it being legitimate, and I sell it as being legitimate because there is no way in HE double hockey sticks that Dabo would be saying that if Clemson wasn't involved. It would not be a real championship if Clemson was not there. It's not going to be a real championship if you have what we got now. What, 40% of the Power Five not out here? Come on.
L. Duncan, what do you think of Dabo Swinney? Buy or sell? Sell.
Sell, because it's ironic that he would say the 4 best teams should play for the title when you have to qualify it by saying the 4 best teams that were allowed to play should contend for the title. But you guys, I mean, he's not exactly wrong. Like, it really comes down to the ACC and SEC every single year. Only I would buy this more if it was coming from like Ed Ogeron or Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, someone who actually has to face a gauntlet just to make it to the playoff system, unlike Clemson, who cakewalks there and then, yes, has good results when they make it.
Wait a second. So you're...
Wow.
You put credence in that he says we're there every year, so it's legitimate because we're here. Sarah Spain, how about you?
No, I mean, listen, I understand the mental gymnastics that we all have to do in order to suspend disbelief enough to enjoy what we're watching in a bubble or with only 60 games or with half of the conferences playing. But in the end, it's going to be different. It's better than nothing. I'm happy to have sports in whatever capacity we can. But anyone who argues that there's no asterisk, good or bad, different or indifferent, is just fooling themselves. They're taking this whole cognitive dissonance thing just a little bit too far.
Mm-hmm. We'll move on. Buy or sell two. George Kittle today. Tight end from San Francisco signing an extension for a contract. 5 years, $75 million, 30 guaranteed. He was number one for tight ends for about 2 hours, maybe 3. Travis Kelce and KC, a 4-year extension, and Schefter's reporting $57 million there. So quick math, carry the 3, repeating, of course. Looks like Kelce now number one in tight ends. I should say part of my take had the George Kittle report first. So both got paid. What do you think? Who's more important to their team? Who deserves number one tight end money, L. Duncan?
George Kittle, and I think he deserves more than number one tight end money. He was totally robbed because George Kittle has the 4th most receiving yards for his team in the league, right? The other dude's a receiver. Meanwhile, he's paid the 11th highest among all receiver contracts. On top of that, he's a ridiculous run blocker on a team that runs the ball over 47% of the time. George Kittle not only needs receiver money, he needs that Lane Johnson right tackle money, baby. $18 million a year.
Okay, Sarah Spain.
Yeah, this is a tough one because it depends on some of the statistics you look at. Kelce leads the league in receptions and receiving yards for tight ends, whereas Kittle just leads in yak. But the blocking that L points to is a huge part of this. And he was almost 30% of receptions over the last 2 years for his team. So he's a massive part of that offense, both when he's getting the ball and when he's helping others. So yeah, I'm going to go Kittle.
Bomani Jones?
Close, though.
Well, the thing for Kittle with the 49ers is he's the most singular player that they have. You saw what they did last year with him as basically being their most threatening receiver on the team. They feel like they can just plug any old running back in there. Their quarterback is not very good no matter what the numbers happen to say. To me, he is the best tight end in the league. Now, Kelsey has been great, but what the Chiefs do have is you got Tyreek Hill. You got other guys that you can put the ball into their hands and then make it happen. But I know if I'm Travis Kelsey, I was so excited to hear this news about George Kittle. He just went and got everybody paid. The 49ers completely blew the whole salary structure at the position.
But they also get more out of their tight ends than just about any team,
Yeah.
and Kansas City's in that grouping as well. Buy or sell 3, check this out. Zach Greinke last night. Is he tipping his own pitches? Is he telling San Francisco what's coming, or is he just hurrying everything along to get through it? Could it be a protest, right, about the whole sign stealing, showing that knowing what's coming doesn't mean you'll hit it? He might feel that way. Joe Kelly appears to feel a different way. He said on Ross Tripling's Big Swing podcast, everyone knows they're cheaters. They know they're cheaters. They're not respectable men to me. L, buy or sell it all?
Yeah, I mean, I'm selling that this is what his excuse was, something about, like, you know, they shouldn't have snitched, and that's not how you do it. Joe Kelly is just upset because apparently he tipped his hand to what the Red Sox did, which was cover for Alex Cora. He's like, we lied. You guys should have lied too. And then he wouldn't have got fired. He doesn't care about the actual cheating part. He cares about the actual snitching part. But I have the biggest issue, guys, with the people on Twitter that are like, get him, Joe Kelly. I hate snitches and rats. Knowing they're not the violinists on the Titanic. They're Billy Zane. If they're getting in trouble, they're selling everyone up the river and they're singing like a canary. Shut up.
Do you have any other thoughts on this? You seem like you're very attached to this. Sarah Spade, how about you?
Al is so feisty about this. I actually don't think it's a protest. If it was maybe someone else, I would think, yeah, they're trying to play that game. And if it was not in a shortened 60-game season where every single game matters, I think this is just quirky Greinke being like, I like to move quick, and it's not working the normal way, so I'm just going to go ahead and yell it and give you my own signs and then see if they can hit it because my stuff is nasty.
Bomani Jones.
Yeah, but it's a better story if he was just flexing on them and saying, I can tell you what the pitch is and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And the truth doesn't really matter at that point. So I'd rather believe that Greinke is a gangster rather than simply believing that Greinke is neurotic. Yes, I like the idea that he told him what it was. As for your man, Joe Kelly, here's my thing about it. If you really stand this tough on this principle, that's what you believe, good for you. I'd love to know some of the other principles that you stand on, because I get the feeling you'll be shrugging off a lot more important stuff than this while you out here ready to fight about this damn snitching situation.
Man, you guys really, there's so much feist in the show. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. We have to say goodbye to Sarah Spain. I wish I had a Titanic reference like Elle did. How would you say goodbye to Sarah here, Elle?
My heart will go on. My heart will go on.
There we go. Oh, okay. I didn't have that there. Sarah, wave goodbye. El Duncan, Bomani Jones, showdown in 2 minutes. Kid Bomani Jones, good luck in showdown. The race for 8 happening right before our eyes. Right now and tonight, Portland's in the driver's seat. Here's the many, many scenarios. Play-in would be Saturday, and if 9 beats 8, then they go again Sunday, and then the Lakers after that. Bomani, how do you see this playing out? And do you think the Lakers are maybe rooting for one team over another?
I mean, the math says the Blazers are going to do it, but the Lakers got to be rooting for the Suns. You want the set of guys that have not been here before. I don't think they want a challenge in the first round. They just need to go out here and play a little bit.
El Duncan?
It's going to be the Blazers, but I think they want to see the Spurs because they're sort of like the Diet Rockets who are probably waiting for the Lakers in the second round. It's a tune-up for the small ball lineup that they're going to see, something that the Lakers don't particularly excel again.
You know, Bomani, if it were the Suns, that would mean they would be on a maybe 10-game winning streak. You would want a team that's won 10 straight. We'll give the point to Duncan. We'll move on. Showdown 2, the Sixers, their restart, much like where they were before the pandemic, and negative x-rays for the wrist here for Joel Embiid. But they're already without Simmons. What does this mean going into the playoffs for Philly, El?
Yeah, this is a nothing burger. He's fine. It's just that he's missed 57% of his career games because of injury or rest. And so this is just a big deal because of that alone. He's fine.
Bomani Jones?
Yeah, I mean, though, they need him as the best as he could possibly be if they're not going to be out here with Simmons. He is a great defensive player, but this just all seems like it's the end of the Brett Brown era.
Point Bomani Jones, showdown 3. I don't even know what this means. These are just words. You tell me what you think of these words, okay? Joe Hayden's agent denies Joe Hayden sent the Joe Hayden jerseys to Pac-Man Jones. that Pac-Man Jones set on fire. What are you doing with this information, Bomani?
I am telling Joe Hayden to, dig out your crew, figure out who did this to you, right? That is not a man to be trifled with, and I don't know when the next time is you're going to see Pac-Man Jones. It may be 20 years from now. Y'all going to have to tangle.
L. Duncan?
Yeah, apparently Joe Hayden is a marked man in somebody's eyes because this is basically equivalent of like calling the cops and pretending someone's squatting. That is not anything to joke about. Pac-Man Jones is not the one.
Okay. Bomani, you were asking for an around-the-horn investigation we don't have time for. Point, L. Duncan. FaceTime, L. Duncan.
Okay, I wanted to give a shout out to Odyssey Sims, who's returning to the Lynx, making her season debut after returning from maternity leave. But instead, I'm going to shout out Kima Siverin, the cornerback for the Seahawks, who was released because he tried to sneak a woman into the team hotel by pretending she was in fact a Seahawks player. I have so many questions. How big is this woman?
What?
What position was she supposedly playing? I mean, you had a chance to be an NFL player, and now you're going to be the guy who got cut trying to get some cut.
Oh, okay. I'm not touching that. Around the horn investigation into this now. Bomani Jones? Sarah Spain? Is there anything? No, you're just...
Damn.
He risked it all and lost it all.
Damn.
Wow. So we started this week with enduring long-standing friendships in the NBA, and now we end it with this. All right. We're off for the weekend, not back till Tuesday. Have a weekend, everybody.